Apparently, AOC was pretty shocked after her re-election. She found out that some of her supporters voted for Donald Trump. Some of AOC's constituents who voted for her also voted for Donald Trump. Take a look at this. And I think this says something about populism, right? Why is AOC looking for the accounts and podcasts that Trump voters listen to? Is she trying to create a hit list she'll go after with the federal government? Actually, let me pull this out of here and pull it up here because it's a twofer, and then open this up and then I'll bring her back in. So apparently on Instagram, you know, every now and then AOC does these live events, and she was trying to figure out why some of her supporters voted for Trump. Listen to this.
Which podcasts are you listening to? Which accounts are you subscribing to? I'm interested, like genuinely. Let me know which ones specifically, which accounts, which podcasts, etc. Which podcasts are you listening to? Which accounts are you subscribing to? I'm interested, like genuinely. Let me know which ones specifically, which accounts, which podcasts, etc.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Why? She doesn't go on those shows anyway. AOC has not been on any left independent media show since she won the first time. She went on Jimmy Dore's show. She was on Glenn Greenwald's show. She hasn't even been on, and I'm talking about some of her biggest supporters. I never even saw her on Kyle's show. I never saw her on Secular Talk. I never saw her on Breaking Points. I never saw her on, actually, I don't think I saw her on Rising when Crystal and Saga were on Rising. I've never seen her on, was she on Majority Report since she won? Yeah, like, so why do you care what podcasts people are watching? You don't go on those shows anyway. She goes on to Pod Save America. She'll go on to CNN. Pod Save America is the Obama joint. So keep that in mind. So she'll go on to those shows. Why do you care who these people are listening to? So AOC is trying to grapple with something here because she doesn't understand why someone who voted for her for Congress would vote for Donald Trump for president. And this goes back to what I've been saying before. Not just this election, but this one really does stand out. There are a number of people who don't vote down ballot. I saw this happen in 2020 as well. There were a couple people I knew where they're Republican and they voted for the Republican congressional seats, but they voted for Joe Biden for president. It happens sometimes. People don't always vote down ballot. But I think what it really comes down to is populism. Because populism is popular. Now, listen to the CNN panel, because they're trying to figure this out. They're like, oh, God, how could this happen? Jake Tapper is like, what is going on? And this just goes to show you how the Democratic Party is completely out of touch with their own base. Listen to this.
Something really interesting, guys. Kevin, let me start with you. So sure. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, very progressive New Yorker, she went on Instagram to ask people, looking at the polls and realizing, like, hey, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people that voted for me in my district and also voted for Donald Trump. Why? But like she asked in a nice way to explain. And some of the response, she's posting the responses, some of them, quote, it's real simple. Trump and you care for the working class. Quote, I feel that you are both outsiders compared to the rest of DC and less establishment. Quote, I support you and did this. Felt like I didn't have much of a choice after Biden's administration.
Let me pause there. I don't consider AOC to be an outsider anymore, right? Like she was at first, but AOC has learned to fit right in with Democrat establishment since she's been there, right? So she went from protesting outside Nancy Pelosi's office to calling Nancy Pelosi Mama Bear. She learned the game very quickly. Okay. So I don't know if I don't consider her to be that way anymore, but going in there, yeah, I could see that. Caring about the working class. I support you and did this, felt like I didn't have a choice after the Biden administration. So what this goes to show you is that you can't just put voters in a box anymore. That some of us may agree that we want everyone to have health care. We want universal health care in this country. And then also may agree that the immigration issue needs to be fixed. Some of us may agree that we need to cancel student debt. We need to cancel medical debt. And also still may agree that the economy under the Biden-Harris administration is a mess, and may also agree that the border issue has been a disaster under this administration. And the problem with the two parties is that they tend to see these voters as separate. And what we've noticed over the past couple of years is that these voters aren't that much separate anymore when it comes to these issues. So I think that it's a mistake to put voters in a box.
What do you think?
Well, and some of those notes also struck a chord when it comes to authenticity, right? They talked about being authentic candidates for office. Listen, Donald Trump increased his share in that New York City district, AOC's district, by double digits. So you're seeing, and I think you're going to see a lot more of this analysis go on, especially in the states where you saw a high level of ticket splitting, whether it be Democratic senators holding their own in Wisconsin, electing obviously a Democratic governor in North Carolina, while losing the state to Donald Trump. You're going to see these Democrats, I think, now reassess what messaging, kind of broke through and what Donald Trump was able to capture.
It's populism. And that's what I'm trying to get across to people. It's populism. This is what Bernie, there's a reason why when Bernie was running for president, particularly the last race in 2020, there's a reason why he had the most support from independents. It was populism. He had an economic message that was a populist message that resonated with working class people. There's a reason why. But at that time, CNN, you, Jake Tapper, MSNBC, Fox News, all of you guys shamed Bernie Sanders. All of you guys said, no way, that's socialism. First of all, I'm gonna need people to learn the definition of socialism. Socialism is workers owning the means of production. What Bernie Sanders was talking about was not workers owning the means of production. He was talking about the same type of system that they have in some of the Scandinavian countries in Europe. Those are not socialist countries. But what happened was corporate media ran with that narrative that is socialism and they want to take your health care away. And this is why I'll tell you again about the media. Jordan Sheraton is right when he says we need to be protesting corporate media. They took that message and they ran with it, and it scared people. And it is worse. And to make it worse, his own damn party, the Democratic Party, didn't even want to back Bernie. They wanted anyone but him. They even would have been okay with Trump before they would have been okay with Bernie Sanders. They won't tell you that, but I think we know. So that's what it is. So this could be AOC's way of putting out a message there to the Democrat Party leadership and letting them know, well, my voters, some of them voted for Trump and they voted for me. And that could be AOC's way of trying to slide herself in for 2028. I'm thinking down the road, folks. I'm telling you, we live in a cartoon, but we're going to use our imagination. And that's what we do on this show sometimes. I'm wondering if this was AOC's way of letting Dem leadership know that she can be considered to be on the same level as Donald Trump. Thus, she could be a good option for them to push to run for president in 2028. She will be of age. I think about these things sometimes. I'm a dreamer and a lover, not a fighter.
Assess what messaging, kind of broke through and what Donald Trump was able to capture. The energy on the ground.
The ticket splitting, so interesting, I think.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I talked to Jamal Bowman the other day, outgoing member, also up there in the Bronx, and he said the same thing. He said, a lot of people who went for Donald Trump actually voted for me in the primary. Isn't that interesting that the campaign didn't use me on the stump? Sure. Kind of taking shots. But I think he attributed it to him being just more relatable than the other than his opponent. And I thought that was also an interesting dynamic when you see, a lot of Latino voters changing their vote recently, going from Democrats to Republicans.
Yeah, I think it's really, obviously this is the billionaire who the working class identify with in Donald Trump. And I think the part where they said they're both outsiders really struck with me because I think it was the economy and both AOC and Donald Trump fight for it. Different ways, different policy prescriptions, but they talk about it. And then that ability to connect with people, especially for AOC being very close to the district, but Donald Trump obviously projecting it via social media during the national media, because he did spend some time in that area, but not a lot.
Senator.
Let me pause there. So to this point, I want to point out Spark Joy said Gavin Newsom is going to run in 2028. I think Gavin Newsom has two things. Number one, the good thing about Gavin Newsom is he already has an in because he's related to Nancy Pelosi by marriage. So he already has that in. The bad thing for Gavin Newsom is that Gavin Newsom is the governor of California, and California is an economic disaster. Economic disaster. I can see it right now. I can see it right now. Donald Trump and Gavin Newsom debating each other on the stage, or JD Vance at that point. We don't know. How old is Trump? I don't know what Trump's doing. But I can see it right now, them saying, oh, whoa, you want this guy to be president of the United States? Have you been to California? You know what I mean? You could even say it in like a Chandler voice. Chandler from Friends. Have you been to California? So I don't know. That might not work out too well for Gavin Newsom. But same thing with AOC. I'm not saying this to say that she would win. We don't know. I think she would have a difficult time winning. I really do. But the Democratic Party, they need to change something. And they could be kind of seeing, okay, well, maybe because AOC is very popular, maybe she could be that one that runs in 2028. Do I think that she would win? No, I think she would still probably lose. But put it this way, the Trump administration would have to mess up so badly with the economy for AOC to win. I think the economy would still be a deciding factor. But even then, I think that she would have a hard time winning. But who knows? That's like what, 4.5 years from now? 4.5 years from now.
Andy Kim of New Jersey. He used to represent this congressional district that was a Trump district. And I remember talking to him, and I forget if this was on air or off air, but I said something like, do you know who these 50,000 people are who vote for you and vote for Donald Trump? And he knew who they were, and he knew why they voted for both of them. And it's just an interesting thing. And it's obviously something that Democrats need to be doing more of.
And to your point, Jake, Senator-elect Kim, after those results came in, went on a listening tour of that congressional district in New Jersey to figure out what was powering the thought behind, supporting him as a member of Congress and Donald Trump at the top of the ticket, and that spillover. And we saw it in 2016, where you had a good number of Bernie Sanders supporters, to Khadijah's point, jump over and support Donald Trump in the general election when he went down. Same with Jamal Bowman losing in that primary. You saw some of those folks probably go over to the other side and support Donald Trump. It's interesting, these changing dynamics, demographics, things on the ground.
So quick.
It's populism. And then also another thing I want to add to this is people don't always vote the same for the presidential race as they do for the congressional races, or they do for like the gubernatorial races. Local politics is a little bit different. Massachusetts, my state here, we've done that before as well. While this state went to Hillary Clinton in 2016, it also went to Governor Charlie Baker, who was a Republican. We've been known to do that here in Massachusetts, where our governor is a Republican, but the state votes for the Democratic presidential candidate. North Carolina has also been known to do that. So there's that. But I think the general message here overall is populism. But there's a problem that AOC has, and I want to show you the turnout over time, because I told you guys voter turnout has been decreasing, and I'm not exaggerating about that. And it's no different with her. Look at this for New York election results, the 14th district. Now, this is the 2020. So we went all the way back to 2020 because they have races every 2 years, right? So all the way back to 2020, AOC received 71.6%. That's good. 71.6%. Do you see that? Over 152,000 votes. In 2022, I'm showing you how people are dropping off. In 2022, she received 70.7%, a little over 82,000 votes. And in this most recent election in 2024, she received 68.9%, although she did get a little bit over 123,000 votes. What you've seen, though, is this the same person she ran again? Tina Forte? Tina, did you run? Damn, Tina. Okay, so Tina ran twice in a row. Interesting. But what you're seeing overall, let me look at the turnout. It was a little bit higher this time. The turnout this time for both was 178, little over 178,000, right? And then the turnout for 2022 was 116,000. Again, that's also a midterm year. And then the turnout for 2020 was definitely a lot higher, over 213,000. But the reality is that, and this is what I was trying to tell people, the turnout has been decreasing over time. And that's something that we do have to be real about. Now, why is that? We saw that with Kamala Harris too. People are less engaged. Even some people that said they were going to vote third party at the end decide to stay home. People are just less engaged with going to vote for these politicians. And I totally understand. Like, I can't shade them for that, right? Now, some people are saying some things that are not completely true about that. I want to be very clear about this. Let's look at this for a second with New York. Now, this is from Marcus says, AOC removing her pronouns, Trump approaching 45% support from New Yorkers. Welcome to the Trump era Democrats. First of all, let me address the pronoun issue. There's a bunch of people tweeting that AOC just removed her pronouns after she realized some of her voters voted for Trump. That was done in 2023. So just FYI for people wondering about that, that was removed in 2023. That wasn't done recently. So just FYI. That being said, look at what's happening in New York. And this is very telling. Again, Kamala Harris, 55.86%. Donald Trump, 44.14%. In New York. That's an increase for him. So you can see what was happening here, right? There's an increase, like something shift. And I told you, I talked to New Yorkers before on the show. A big part of it was the migrant crisis. People had things to say about that. People also had things to say about the economy overall. Not happy with that as well. But there were a lot of people that were upset about the migrant crisis. And that also includes Eric Adams, to be honest. He was upset about that too, because he said we don't have the resources for this. But you are seeing a shift. You're seeing a change in New York, of all places. If you were to look at this, this is important. Raw vote change for Democrats in 2020, from 2020 to 2024. This is the difference. -2 million Black voters, -2 million Latino voters, -3 million under 30-year-old voters, -6 million people who make under $50,000, -7 million people who make under $50,000 or between $50,000 and $99,000, plus 7 million for those who make $100,000 or more. Democrats have lost support with every group except voters who make over $100,000 or more. This is what happened when you abandon the working class. That's coming from Proud Socialist. Shout out to Ryan Knight there. It's populism. So all these years, the Democratic Party been moving to the right. That is not working for their base. But a populist message does. This is why Bernie got so much support from independents. So the connection between AOC voters voting for her and voting for Donald Trump, even though they're in different parties, it's a populist message that is able to appeal to the working class. And this is why someone like Kamala Harris lost. And this is why someone like Hillary Clinton lost. And that's why Donald Trump won. Things to think about there, folks. Things to think about. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.